Let's learn some Torah. Parshat Teitzei begins with a series of very intense texts, and it's possible to read the stories as separate from each other. In fact, when you look on the inside of a Torah scroll, you can see sometimes there's a gap between words, and those are tribal traditions. The scribes have traditions of placing breaks in certain parts of the Torah called stuma and ptucha. A stuma is when there are when there is a word before and after, so sort of the space is enclosed in the column. Ptucha, which literally means open, is when the column and the space are open to the margin. It's a very interesting tradition. Between the opening sections of Parshat Teitzei, there is a break in the stories, and so you might read them as if they are not connected. But in fact, one of the ways of interpreting biblical text is to see the connection between juxtaposed texts. Let me tell you the three in sequence, and then tell you what has been done by commentators like Rabbi Avadia Sforno, a Sephardic commentator on the Torah. So the opening is about going to war. And if you go to war and you are victorious, and again, I think that's a very complicated phrase, but if you go to war, and this is a trigger warning, really, these sections of the Torah deal with ancient norms of warfare, of society, of gender, and so not suggesting that we should think this way, speak this way, and God forbid, act this way. But the Torah says when you go to war, and if you are victorious, and you, obviously it's talking to a male soldier in the heat of victory on the battlefield, you see a beautiful woman, and you wish to take her as wife. Now, that should be more than enough to prompt a lot of response and reaction from all of us, both in terms of how people should treat each other, certainly in a world that continues in some ways, in some significant ways, to oppress women as not equal in society. These are all areas that we must continue to respond to with vigor, passion, and traditional voices for justice. But this is the beginning of the Parsha. Yesterday we talked about how to face difficult, troubling traditions. Well, this is another one of them, and you'll see how the sequence might actually be some of the response. So I feel like apologizing over and over for these verses, but we have to face them together. That's what it is to be an alive person of faith who sees the Torah as not just holy, but also redeemable, even in these verses. So I'll just speak the verses and continue to feel very complicated about them. When you go to war and you see a beautiful woman and you wish to take her as your wife, the rules for that, the verse says immediately, are that the woman is required to be in your household for a full month of mourning. She has to shave her head and trim her fingernails. And after that, if you, obviously we're talking about the warrior who has now done this, if you then wish to marry her, you can marry her. And if you wish not to marry her, you cannot, and again, these are ancient norms, you cannot sell her or discard her. She is free as a human being because you have hurt her. The Bible saying this tells you, first of all, what the contemporary reality was. This was a world where wars were fought. This was a world where women in the conquered army's side would be taken. I have so much to say about this. But what I want to say is that nestled within even this text is a very interesting shift. It's not progressive by any modern standard, but realize what this already says. That exactly, Rose, exactly like the book of Hosea, and yes, David, not so ancient, sadly. The conquering warrior who's probably adrenaline pumping, whatever you imagine in some war zone, which I don't want to imagine, but as David said, it's not so ancient, is now told, yes, you might want her, and yes, you won, but you need to bring her into your home where she will mourn for her parents for a month. And the things that you loved about her, which you didn't know her at all, and that's not love, but you noticed that she was beautiful, those will change, because when you bring her into your home, she has to have her head shaved and her fingernails trimmed. Now, those are external signs of beauty that in the ancient world probably registered very centrally. But realize what the Torah is saying, that in order to become husband and wife in an ancient setting, which is not the same as our modern notions of equal partners, but in order to become husband and wife, even in biblical times, the woman needs to be able to grieve her parents and do so in front of you and be physically transformed, so that it's not the lust of a battlefield that fills you. You have a moderated experience, similar to the way the Torah tells us about how to eat by showing restraint, how to love by showing restraint, how to conduct ourselves by showing restraint. These are all very complicated ideas for modern ears, and probably even for biblical ears. But the Torah is taking a step forward in the world, by mediating the primal power that this man has experienced in war. That would be enough for us to talk about. The next section of the text, separated by one of those breaks in the lines, says that when a man, again, this is so male-centered, but realize in the same way what's about to happen. It takes an ancient norm and it moderates it just a bit. It doesn't make it palatable to modern ears, but it does tell you that the Torah is speaking to the ancient norm, saying, not like that. So the text says, when a man has two wives, a lot to talk about there, and this will not be even pleasant at all. When a man has two wives, one of them is ahuvah, loved, one is snu'ah, hated. I have a lot to say about this. It was suggested to me by a student yesterday that this was the Torah commenting on the stories of Rachel and Leah, that Leah was unloved and Rachel was loved, and the order of their children matters quite a lot. The text here says, if the hated wife's son is the firstborn, and the loved wife's son comes later, and obviously this is talking about male children in a world of primogeniture, which means that the oldest son inherits. It's an old way of conducting inheritance law. Just because the man loves one wife more, the text says the eldest child, even of the hated wife, should inherit, because that's what justice looks like. Now, again, you and me, wow, this is complicated. Wow, should we not pit children against each other? Wow, for those of us who have been involved in any conflicts around inheritance, do we know this is also not an ancient story? But the Torah comes to say that the subjective feelings that a person has cannot disadvantage someone else. Wow, is that a mouthful? Wow, is the Torah saying, yes, you have the power, but not the right. And then the third text, again separated by a textual break, is the one about Ben Sorer Umoreh, the rebellious child that we spoke about before, where if a mother and a father bring a child who is rebellious before the elders of the town, saying, this one does not listen to us, they can stone that child. And again, three sections of the Torah, going to war and seeing a woman. This is a man we're talking about. A man going to war, seeing a woman. A man having two wives and not loving one. And all the children and the people suffer. And the third, about the rebellious child. This is what Sforno says about these three texts. Sforno says, you might have thought that these three texts have nothing to do with each other. But if the way a husband and wife come together is through that war practice, the first text, there will definitely be a loved and an unloved spouse. And if there is an unloved and loved spouse, there will definitely be a rebellious child, because how could there not be? And eventually there will be death. And that tells us, at least in the rabbinic mind, that the sequence of difficult texts in the Torah is an invitation to face complicated family dynamics, not avoid them, not ignore them, not pretend they're not there. And for us to say, no, it should not be like that. Perhaps the Torah's unfolding narrative helps us face the Torah itself yet again, because the choice of sequence of events and teachings in this week's Parsha is so hurtful and so complicated that we will do anything in our power to avoid getting there, which means looking not only at the symptoms, but addressing the root causes. How do we structure our family conversations? How do we talk about the way that we treat parents? How do we talk about the way that we treat children? How do we talk about the destructive power in a world where war happens? How do we retain our humanity in a world that can be so primal? The rabbis, David, I think you're right, do understand family dynamics because they have. In fact, there's a famous section of the text when one rabbi asks another, what are the limits of the obligation to honor a parent? And the rabbi who's asked the question says, I just don't know. And the Talmud reveals, because he was raised an orphan. He never knew his parents. In a world where, please God, we're blessed to work on our relationships, we can do nothing less than actually work on them. Acknowledge that they can be hard. So friends, I just want to bless us in the midst of this complicated Parsha with peace. Because with peace, the rest of the story doesn't happen. Inner peace, outer peace. It's incredibly important for us to understand that the Torah's language is not the final word on ethical questions, nor will our voices be the final voices to speak to this. But our modern notion of what is right, in conversation with the Torah's way of pushing things one step forward, that helps us remain on a trajectory that makes things better and better. May we be blessed to stay on that trajectory, to be part of a faithful path towards health. So I bless you, friends, with all of that. Let's sing our way into a good day. Ya la 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 la, today I la la la, today I la 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 la, I la la la. Have a good day, friends. See you tomorrow.